You didn't arrive here by accident. The simple act of clicking on this content has already activated something in your quantum field, a frequency of readiness that signals you're prepared to receive information most people will never encounter. What if everything you've lived until this moment has been nothing more than preparation for this exact instant? What if your entire life story has been carefully orchestrated to bring you to this precise point where transformation becomes inevitable? In the quantum field, coincidences don't exist. Only synchronicities, meaningful patterns revealing the intelligence organizing reality. Every challenge, every breakthrough, even your darkest moments were catalysts designed to break you free from limitations, keeping you small. The universe doesn't make mistakes. It only creates experiences that serve your evolution, even when you can't see the bigger picture. If you've been feeling like something significant is about to happen, like you're on the edge of major transformation, it's because that shift has already begun at quantum levels. What I'm about to share will completely change how you understand reality and your role as a conscious creator. You'll discover the specific signs your consciousness is already awakening, why most people miss these signals, and exactly how to activate your quantum awareness to create from infinite possibility rather than programmed limitation. This isn't theory. These are practical techniques that will shift your frequency immediately and unlock levels of creativity and manifestation you may have never experienced. Your quantum field is aligned, your frequency tuned, and your consciousness ready to leap from passive observer to active creator of your experience. There's something extraordinary happening around us every single moment, yet most people walk through life completely blind to it. Synchronicities aren't random coincidences. They're the universe's way of communicating directly with your quantum consciousness, like invisible breadcrumbs leading you toward your highest potential. Think of it as a cosmic GPS system that's always active, constantly sending signals to guide your awareness toward the experiences and opportunities that'll create the most expansion in your reality. The observer effect in quantum physics tells us that consciousness itself shapes what we perceive, and when you're truly awake, you begin to notice these patterns everywhere. It's as if the field itself is conspiring to help you remember who you really are. I remember a time in my life when I was completely stuck, feeling like every door was closed and every path blocked. For weeks, I'd been asking the universe for a sign, some kind of guidance about which direction to take my life. One morning while walking to grab coffee, I noticed the same red cardinal appearing at 3 different locations along my route, something that had never happened before. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call about an opportunity that seemed impossible just days earlier, and within months, my entire reality had shifted into something I couldn't have imagined. The synchronicity wasn't the bird itself, but my willingness to see it as part of a larger pattern, a message from the quantum field, responding to my focused intention. Most people dismiss these moments because they've been programmed to believe that life happens to them rather than through them. But when you understand that your consciousness is constantly creating reality through observation and intention, you start to realize that synchronicities are actually feedback loops from the field itself. It's like the universe is constantly adjusting its frequency to match your level of awareness and readiness to receive what you're truly calling in. The more you pay attention, the more the field responds with clearer and more obvious signs. This isn't wishful thinking. It's quantum mechanics playing out in your everyday experience. The key is learning to recognize that these signs often come disguised as ordinary moments that carry extraordinary meaning. A conversation overheard at exactly the right time. A book falling off a shelf that contains exactly the answer you needed. Meeting someone who shares a piece of wisdom that shifts your entire perspective. These aren't accidents. They're evidence that your consciousness is already operating at a level where creation and manifestation are happening naturally. When you begin to see life this way, you realize that the illusion of separation between you and the universe completely dissolves. You're not separate from the field. You are the field, expressing itself through your unique focus and vibration. The transformation begins the moment you make a simple declaration to yourself: I am ready to see the signs. Repeat this phrase in stillness, not as a desperate plea, but as a statement of your expanded awareness and willingness to receive guidance from the quantum field. When you do this consistently, something remarkable happens. Your perception begins to attune to frequencies that were always there, but previously invisible to your programmed mind. You start noticing patterns, connections, and opportunities that seem to appear out of nowhere, but were actually always present, waiting for your consciousness to align with their potential. This is the first step toward living as a conscious observer rather than a passive participant in your own life. The most beautiful part about awakening to synchronicities is realizing that they're not special gifts reserved for a chosen few. They're the natural language of an activated consciousness. Every person walking this planet has access to this guidance system, but most have been conditioned to ignore it or dismiss it as coincidence. Once you begin to see these patterns clearly, you'll understand that life has been trying to communicate with you all along, offering constant course corrections and opportunities for expansion. But what comes next might surprise you even more, because understanding synchronicities is just the beginning of discovering how deeply we've all been programmed to limit our own infinite possibilities. From the moment we take our first breath, invisible chains begin wrapping around our consciousness, shaping what we believe is possible and what we accept as reality. Family voices echo in our minds, telling us to be realistic. School systems teach us to follow predetermined paths without question. And media constantly bombards us with messages of scarcity and limitation. These aren't just influences, they're frequency modulators that literally program our quantum field to vibrate at lower levels of potential. Most people spend their entire lives wearing these metaphorical foggy glasses, believing the blurred vision they see is all that exists. But what if I told you that everything you've been taught about your limitations is nothing more than inherited programming that has nothing to do with who you really are? I used to catch myself repeating patterns that felt completely foreign to my authentic self, working jobs that drained my energy because that's what responsible adults do, avoiding risks because security is more important than dreams, and dismissing my intuitive hits because that's not logical. One day I realized I was living someone else's script entirely, following programming that had been downloaded into my consciousness before I was even old enough to question it. The most shocking part wasn't discovering these patterns, but recognizing how automatically I'd been running them, like a computer executing code without conscious awareness. When you start paying attention to your own thoughts and reactions, you'll be amazed at how much of what you consider your personality is actually just borrowed beliefs from people who were operating from their own limitations. This programming doesn't just affect your thoughts, it literally changes your vibrational frequency and determines what timelines and possibilities you can access in the quantum field. When you're vibrating at the frequency of fear, doubt, and scarcity, you're essentially tuning your consciousness radio to stations that broadcast more of the same energy. Every time you think, "I can't afford that," "I'm not smart enough," or "that's impossible for someone like me," you're not just having a thought, you're sending a clear signal to the field about what reality you're ready to create and receive. The universe responds perfectly to whatever frequency you're broadcasting, which is why people tend to experience the same patterns over and over again. It's not punishment or bad luck. It's pure quantum mechanics responding to your programmed vibration. The most insidious part of this programming is how it feeds external systems that benefit from keeping human consciousness operating at lower frequencies. Fear-based thinking makes people easier to control, more likely to consume products they don't need, and less likely to question authority or explore their own infinite potential. When you're constantly worried about survival, competition, and scarcity, you're not spending energy on creation, expansion, or discovering the extraordinary capabilities of your own consciousness. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's simply how energy works in a quantum field, where attention and focus determine what gets amplified in your experience. The systems around us naturally organize to maintain whatever frequency we're collectively broadcasting. Breaking free from this programming starts with the radical recognition that most of your limitations aren't real. They're just beliefs that have been running on autopilot for so long that they feel like facts. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a limitation that's actually true and one that's just been repeated enough times to feel real. When you begin to observe your thoughts without immediately believing them, you start to see the difference between your authentic desires and your programmed responses. This observer consciousness is the key to everything. It's the part of you that can witness the programming without being controlled by it. From this space of aware observation, you can begin to consciously choose which thoughts, beliefs, and frequencies you want to embody. The moment you realize how deeply you've been programmed is actually the beginning of your freedom, because you can't change what you can't see. Every limiting belief, every fear-based reaction, every pattern that keeps you small was installed without your conscious permission, which means you have the power to uninstall it and choose something completely different. But recognizing the programming is only the first step. The real transformation happens when you learn the specific process for activating your consciousness at quantum levels and literally rewiring your entire system for higher possibilities. What I'm about to share next is the exact method that's been hidden from most people. The key that unlocks your ability to operate as a conscious creator rather than a programmed reactor. The quantum activation process isn't some mystical concept that requires years of meditation or special abilities. It's actually a precise method that anyone can learn and apply immediately to shift their consciousness into higher frequencies of creation and possibility. Think of your awareness like a radio that's been stuck on static-filled stations your entire life, playing the same limiting programs over and over again. The 4 steps I'm about to share are essentially the tuning mechanism that allows you to access the clear, powerful frequencies where infinite possibilities exist and where your true creative power operates. Most people never learn this process because they're too busy reacting to life instead of consciously creating it. But once you understand these steps, everything changes. You'll literally feel the shift happening in your body as your consciousness begins operating from an entirely different level of awareness. The first step is stillness, not just physical quiet, but a deep inner silence that becomes your portal into the quantum field itself. This isn't about emptying your mind or achieving some perfect meditative state. It's about creating a space of receptive awareness where you can actually feel the field of infinite potential that exists beneath all the mental noise. When you practice true stillness, even for just a few minutes, your brain waves begin to shift into coherent patterns that allow your consciousness to access information and possibilities that are completely invisible when you're operating from reactive, programmed thinking. I've experienced this countless times, moments where solutions to complex problems suddenly became obvious, or where I could feel the exact next step I needed to take with complete clarity. This stillness isn't passive, it's an active alignment with the creative force of the universe itself. The second step is observation, learning to witness your thoughts, emotions, and experiences without immediately judging, fixing, or reacting to them. This is where the observer effect from quantum physics becomes practical wisdom in your daily life. When you observe without judgment, You're literally changing the quantum field around whatever you're witnessing, allowing new possibilities to emerge that weren't available when you were caught up in reactive patterns. Most people skip this step because they want to immediately change what they don't like about their experience. But true transformation happens when you first become aware of what is, without resistance. From this space of neutral observation, you gain access to choices and perspectives that were completely invisible when you were identified with the drama of your circumstances. The third step is raising vibration. And this is where most people get confused because they try to think their way into higher frequencies instead of feeling their way there. You have to actually embody the emotional and energetic state of what you want to create before it shows up in your physical reality. This isn't visualization or positive thinking. It's literally tuning your entire system to match the frequency of your desired outcome and then maintaining that vibration regardless of what your current circumstances look like. For example, if you want to create abundance, you need to feel genuinely abundant right now, not when the money shows up. If you want loving relationships, you need to embody the frequency of love first, not wait for someone else to love you. This requires a complete shift from seeking external validation to generating your desired state from within your own consciousness. The fourth and most crucial step is embodiment, living from this new frequency consistently, even when your old reality is still reflected in your physical circumstances. This is where most people fail because they practice the first three steps occasionally, but then return to their old patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving throughout the rest of their day. True embodiment means that your new level of consciousness becomes your default operating system, not just something you access during meditation or when everything is going well. You walk differently, speak differently, make decisions differently, and respond to challenges from this elevated state of awareness. This consistency is what signals to the quantum field that you're serious about this transformation and ready to receive the reality that matches your new vibration. When you consistently practice these 4 steps, something remarkable happens. You begin to notice that reality literally starts reorganizing itself around your new frequency. Opportunities appear, people show up with exactly what you need, and solutions emerge in ways that seem almost magical, but are actually the natural result of consciousness operating at quantum levels. The key is understanding that you're not trying to manipulate or force outcomes. You're simply aligning with the creative principles that govern how reality actually works at the deepest levels. But here's what most people don't realize. There are specific signs that show you when this activation process is actually working, clear indicators that your consciousness has shifted into a completely different operating system. What I'm about to reveal next will help you recognize when you've successfully made this quantum leap, so you'll know without doubt that your transformation is real and permanent. When your consciousness begins operating at quantum levels, the first thing you'll notice is an explosion of synchronicities that become so frequent and obvious that you can't possibly dismiss them as coincidence anymore. These aren't just occasional meaningful moments. They become a constant flow of perfectly timed encounters, messages, and opportunities that seem to respond directly to your thoughts and intentions. You might think of someone and then run into them unexpectedly, or have a question in your mind and immediately hear the answer on the radio or see it on a billboard. The quantum field starts communicating with you in real time, using the physical world as its messenger system. This increase in synchronicities isn't just a nice side effect of awakening. It's actually evidence that your consciousness has learned to communicate directly with the underlying intelligence that organizes all of reality. Another unmistakable sign is discovering a deep sense of peace that remains steady even when everything around you appears to be chaotic or challenging. This isn't the kind of peace that depends on favorable circumstances. It's an unshakable knowing that you're connected to something infinitely larger and more intelligent than any temporary situation you might be facing. When your consciousness is activated, you begin to experience yourself as the observer of your life rather than the victim of it, which naturally creates this profound inner stillness. I remember going through what most people would consider a crisis period, yet feeling completely calm and even curious about how it would all unfold, knowing that whatever was happening was somehow perfect for my growth and expansion. This peace isn't detachment or denial. It's the natural result of knowing yourself as consciousness itself, rather than identifying with the temporary dramas of human experience. Your intuition becomes so sharp and reliable that you start trusting it more than logical analysis or external advice. Decisions that once required weeks of deliberation now become instantly clear through a simple inner knowing that feels more certain than any research or planning could provide. You'll find yourself saying yes to opportunities that make no logical sense but feel completely aligned, or avoiding situations that look perfect on paper but trigger a subtle inner no that you've learned to respect completely. This isn't impulsive behavior. It's your consciousness operating from a level of awareness that can perceive patterns and possibilities that the analytical mind simply cannot access. The more you trust and follow these intuitive hits, the more accurate and detailed they become, creating a feedback loop of increasing clarity and confidence. Old limitations that once seemed fixed and permanent begin dissolving without effort or struggle, almost like they were never real in the first place. Fears that used to control your decisions suddenly lose their power over you, and behaviors that felt compulsive or automatic simply fade away when they're no longer aligned with your new frequency. You might discover that you're naturally eating differently, speaking up in situations where you used to stay quiet, or pursuing goals that your old self would have considered impossible or impractical. This dissolution happens naturally because limitations can only exist when consciousness believes in them. And once you're operating from an activated state, those old beliefs simply don't have anywhere to attach. It's like removing colored filters from a camera. Suddenly, you can see possibilities and options that were always there but previously invisible. Creativity begins flowing through you with an ease and naturalness that feels almost supernatural, as if you've become a clear channel for ideas and inspiration that come from beyond your personal mind. Projects that once felt difficult or forced now seem to create themselves through you, and you find yourself having insights and making connections that surprise even you. This creative flow isn't limited to artistic pursuits. It shows up in problem solving, relationships, business ideas, and any area where you're open to receiving new possibilities. You start feeling a profound sense of connection, not just with other people, but with life itself, as if the boundary between yourself and everything else has become wonderfully transparent. Time begins to feel different too. Sometimes hours pass like minutes when you're in flow states, and other times a single moment can feel eternal and filled with infinite depth and meaning. Perhaps the most profound sign is recognizing that these aren't rewards or achievements you've earned through hard work or spiritual practice. They're simply the natural feedback that emerges when consciousness remembers its true nature and begins operating from its authentic power. The quantum field responds to your activated state by reorganizing reality around your new frequency, creating experiences that match your expanded awareness and potential. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. It's how consciousness has always worked. But most people never discover it because they're too busy trying to fix their problems from the same level of thinking that created them. But understanding these signs is only the beginning. The real question becomes, how do you sustain and deepen this activated state so it becomes your permanent way of being rather than just temporary peak experiences? What comes next will show you exactly how to live from this new consciousness every single day, making it your natural operating system rather than something special you access occasionally. Living from an activated consciousness isn't about adding more practices to your already busy life. It's about transforming ordinary moments into portals of creation and connection with the quantum field. The key is learning to weave conscious breathing, embodied visualization, genuine gratitude, and inspired action into the fabric of your daily existence so naturally that they become as automatic as breathing. Most people think they need hours of meditation or special retreats to maintain high frequencies, but the truth is that a few minutes of truly conscious breathing can shift your entire system instantly. When you breathe with full awareness, you're literally drawing life force energy directly into your cells and aligning your nervous system with coherent patterns that allow higher possibilities to flow through you. This isn't just relaxation. It's active participation in the creative process of reality itself. I used to struggle with maintaining elevated states because I thought spirituality was separate from practical life. Something I did during meditation, but then abandoned when dealing with work, relationships, or daily challenges. Everything changed when I started incorporating what I call micro-activations throughout my day. Taking 3 conscious breaths before important conversations, feeling genuine appreciation for my morning coffee, instead of rushing through it, or asking, what wants to emerge here before making decisions, instead of immediately jumping into problem-solving mode. These tiny shifts created profound changes because they kept me connected to my authentic frequency, even during busy or stressful periods. The most surprising discovery was that these practices actually made me more effective and efficient in practical matters, not less, because I was operating from clarity and alignment rather than reactive patterns. Embodied visualization is completely different from the mental exercises most people try. It's about feeling the reality you want to create so fully in your body that your nervous system can't tell the difference between imagination and actual experience. When you visualize from this embodied state, you're literally programming your quantum field to attract and create experiences that match the frequency you're generating internally. For example, instead of just picturing success in your mind, you feel the physical sensations of confidence, the emotional state of fulfillment, and the energetic signature of achievement flowing through your entire being. This practice dissolves the linear time illusion because you're experiencing your desired reality right now, which signals to the field that you're ready to receive it in physical form. The more vivid and embodied your visualization, the faster reality reorganizes to match your new frequency. Gratitude becomes a powerful technology for quantum creation when you practice it as an active frequency rather than just positive thinking. True gratitude generates a specific electromagnetic signature that literally attracts more experiences worthy of appreciation into your life. But this isn't about being thankful for what you already have. It's about feeling genuine appreciation for what's already on its way to you, for the infinite potential that exists in every moment, and for your own capacity to consciously participate in the creative process. When you can feel grateful for challenges because you know they're catalyzing your expansion, or appreciate difficult people because they're showing you parts of yourself that need integration, you've mastered gratitude as a creative force. This level of appreciation keeps you vibrationally aligned with abundance and possibility, regardless of external circumstances. Inspired action is the bridge between inner transformation and outer manifestation, but it feels completely different from the forced, effortful action most people take when trying to create change. When you're living from an activated state, actions arise naturally from your expanded awareness rather than from fear, obligation, or trying to prove something. These actions feel effortless even when they require significant energy because they're aligned with the natural flow of your authentic expression and purpose. I've noticed that when I take inspired action, doors open in ways that seem miraculous, resources appear from unexpected sources, and obstacles dissolve without struggle. This isn't because the universe is doing me special favors, but because aligned action works with the quantum field rather than against it, creating coherence between your inner frequency and outer expression. The beautiful paradox is that these practices naturally dissolve your sense of linear time and create a felt experience of living in eternal now moments where anything is possible. When you're fully present and aligned, 5 minutes can contain more aliveness and creativity than most people experience in entire days. You begin to realize that you're not just improving your personal life, you're becoming what I call a node of light in the collective consciousness, a point where higher frequencies can anchor and spread to others. Every person who activates their consciousness and learns to live from this expanded state becomes a catalyst for collective transformation, contributing to the awakening of human potential on a global scale. But the most incredible part about mastering these daily practices is how they reveal the ultimate truth about who you really are. And that revelation will change everything you thought you knew about the nature of reality itself. What most people don't realize is that individual consciousness activation is just the beginning of something far more profound. A collective awakening that's happening across the planet as more humans remember their true nature as conscious creators rather than passive observers of reality. When you activate your own awareness and begin operating from quantum levels of consciousness, you automatically become part of a larger field of transformation that's influencing the entire human experience. This isn't some new age fantasy. It's measurable through coherence research that shows how individual heart and brain patterns can influence groups, communities, and even global consciousness. Every time someone breaks free from programmed limitations and starts living from their authentic power, they create ripples in the collective field that make it easier for others to access those same frequencies. You're not just changing your own life, you're contributing to the evolution of human consciousness itself. I experienced this collective connection in a way that completely shifted my understanding during a particularly challenging period when everything in my personal life seemed to be falling apart simultaneously. Instead of collapsing into fear or despair, I found myself naturally dropping into the stillness we discussed earlier, and something extraordinary happened. I could literally feel the presence and support of what seemed like thousands of other consciousness who were going through similar transformations around the world. It wasn't imagination or wishful thinking. It was a tangible sense of being held and supported by a vast network of awakening awareness that transcended physical location or personal circumstances. That experience taught me that when we activate our consciousness, we don't just access our individual potential. We plug into a collective intelligence that's far greater than any single person could generate alone. This collective awakening is creating what researchers call morphic resonance, the phenomenon where new behaviors and insights spread rapidly through populations once a critical mass of individuals embodies them. When enough people learn to operate from activated consciousness, it becomes exponentially easier for others to access those same states because the collective field already contains those patterns and frequencies. This is why transformation that once took decades of spiritual practice can now happen in months or even weeks for people who are ready to receive it. The pathways have already been carved by the pioneers who did the initial work of breaking through programmed limitations and establishing new possibilities in the quantum field. You're benefiting from their contributions, and your own activation contributes to making these frequencies even more accessible for future generations. The most exciting aspect of this collective process is how it's dissolving the illusion of separation that has kept humanity operating from fear, competition, and scarcity for thousands of years. As more people activate their consciousness and experience themselves as interconnected expressions of the same infinite awareness, collaboration begins replacing competition. Abundance thinking overtakes scarcity. Mentality and love becomes more natural than fear. This shift is happening in businesses, relationships, communities, and even global politics as individuals who've done their inner work begin influencing systems from positions of authentic power rather than reactive control. You'll start noticing this everywhere once you're operating from activated awareness. People who seem to effortlessly create positive change, organizations that prioritize consciousness alongside profit, and movements that unite rather than divide because they're emerging from expanded rather than contracted states of being. What amazes me most is how this collective transformation seems to accelerate exponentially as more nodes of consciousness come online, creating what feels like a tipping point where awakened awareness becomes the dominant frequency on the planet rather than the exception. The synchronicities increase not just for individuals, but between awakened people who find each other across vast distances and circumstances, creating collaborations and connections that seem orchestrated by intelligence far beyond what any single mind could coordinate. These aren't accidents. They're evidence that consciousness itself is organizing reality to support its own evolution and expansion through human experience. When you understand that you're part of this larger awakening process, your individual transformation takes on cosmic significance because you realize you're not just healing yourself, you're helping to heal and evolve the entire human species. The implications of this collective activation are so vast that most people can't even imagine what becomes possible when a significant portion of humanity operates from quantum consciousness rather than programmed reactivity. We're talking about the emergence of technologies, social systems, and ways of living that seem impossible from our current level of thinking, but become obvious once consciousness expands beyond its current limitations. The future that's emerging through this collective awakening isn't just better than what we have now. It's so fundamentally different that it represents a new stage of human evolution itself. But experiencing this transformation requires more than just understanding it intellectually. It requires each individual to take complete responsibility for their own consciousness activation and commit to living as the change they want to see in the world. The moment you understand that you are consciousness itself, not a body that has consciousness, but consciousness having a human experience, everything shifts. You are awake to infinite possibilities. You are free from limitations that once felt permanent. These aren't affirmations, they're quantum truths about your authentic nature. Every aligned thought you think creates ripples that touch the entire collective consciousness. Your individual awakening contributes to humanity's evolution. This is your choice point. Will you return to old patterns or commit to living from expanded awareness daily? The quantum field is organizing reality around whatever frequency you choose right now. But your transformation doesn't end here. If this content resonated with your soul, hit that like button to seal your alignment with these frequencies and subscribe to continue your journey of awakening. Share this video with someone who's ready to remember their true power, because when consciousness spreads, it creates exponential change that benefits everyone. The collective awakening needs your voice, your energy, and your commitment to being the change you want to see in the world. Are you ready to step fully into your role as a conscious creator?